Mr. Ken Coleman, good morning and welcome to the first of many Tech Jackson Innovation Summits and Yes We Code Hackathon.
Good morning.
So,
By the way, I'm glad to see the rain out here. We could use some in California.
well, I know you're based in Silicon Valley and your business takes you all over the world. So, first question, have you ever been to Mississippi?
Well, it's interesting. I've been to Mississippi 4 times. My second time in Jackson. I actually have 2 son-in-laws I only have 2 son-in-laws, and they both are from Mississippi, actually, strangely enough. And my father was born 200 miles from here near Memphis. So that's my connection here to Mississippi.
Okay. So, you're well known as one of the major influencers and connectors in Silicon Valley, serving as a mentor to many of the highly influential people in the tech sector and investment communities. But your bio tells us you're an alum of Ohio State University, and last year, as Jonathan can attest to, Ohio became the first state in the country to adopt a vision and strategy of inclusive competitiveness through unanimous decision of their Ohio Board of Regents, so we're happy about that. But we don't know much about you before Ohio State. Tell us your story, how you became interested in computers.
Well, my grandfather was born a slave, and my father's from near Memphis, and then I was born and raised about 400, 500 miles from here, straight north on the Illinois Central Railroad line, a small town called Centralia, Illinois. And my parents never got out of high school, and I was always competitive. And so I decided, I don't know what caused me to do this, but early in grade school, that I was going to not only compete in sports, but compete in the classroom. And I just wanted to be the best person in the classroom, and I made that a challenge. I was fortunate enough to get an academic scholarship to Ohio State and kind of continued that tradition. I tell the story, I played, my only interaction in grade school with white kids was in sports, because it was all black grade school, but our high school was integrated. And my first day in high school was the first time I'd been around white kids, really. And there was an ad on the bulletin board said, or an announcement, put in your application if you want to run for the student council. And even today, I'm not quite sure what made me think I could win, because it was 10% black, 90% white. I didn't know anybody, and I ran, and guess what? I won. And so I was on the student council all through high school, and I was president of the math club, and I was an athlete. And so I just built my life around being competitive in everything I do. And I think it's probably framed my father. The one thing my father always said was, son, whatever you do, work hard and be the best you can be, even if you're a garbage man. And my mother said, all you can do is ask yourself to do what's right. And I kind of framed those 2 things around my life and who I am today and what I've become.
How'd you become interested in computers?
Well, I was also this practical kid for whatever reason. And so I decided when I was a sophomore in high school and getting ready to go in my junior year, I knew I wanted to go to college. And I said it might be smart to take typing so I could type term papers. So I took typing, 2 years of typing. I'm the only boy in the typing class, okay? But it serves me well today. I can touch type. And when I was at Ohio State, there was an ad in the student newspaper which said, at the research center, if you can touch type, you can be a key punch operator in the research center. So I applied, and I got the job as a key punch operator, and I became a computer operator, and the rest is history. I fell in love with computers, and that's where I spent my career.
Okay, so you were out in Silicon Valley before it was known as Silicon Valley. How'd you get out there?
The Air Force. I went in the Air Force. I was a captain during the Vietnam War. I got stationed there, and I tell the story. I thought when I was north of the Golden Gate Bridge, in a place that's assistant called Hamilton Air Force Base, and I thought I wanted to move back to the Midwest where I'm from, either Illinois or Ohio. So it was in March. Always remember this. And I fly to Dayton, Ohio, going to Miamisburg, Ohio facility for a job interview. And it's March and it's snowing. Now, I've been living in California for 2.5 years. I said, wow, it's snow in March. So I go to the place and to the hotel, and then I want to go in the restaurant to have something to eat, and I had no tie. And I live in California. I don't wear these very often, but these are for you, okay? okay. But anyway, so they said, to eat in this restaurant, you need a tie. I said, wow, I've been in California too long. So I'm sitting at the bar having a drink and talking to the guy, why are you here, this kind of conversation. And he's from Minnesota, and I said, I'm here interviewing for a job. And he says, you live in San Francisco and you're interviewing for a job in Southern Ohio? I decided that night I was not going to interview anywhere but San Francisco, and I ended up with HP. And the rest is again history.
So tell us a little bit about your rise from HP and your journey.
I was very fortunate. I ended up at HP, which is the birthplace of what we know as Silicon Valley. It was founded by two amazing people, Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard, and amazing executives and founders. And I got to HP when it was first getting into computer business. And it was exciting, fantastic, with a lot of really smart people. And I ended up being the employee 4 in the commercial computing part of HP, which is the HP you know today, actually. And it was everything one could ask for, working around really smart people, breaking new ground with a great environment, great people, and it's my postgraduate education about entrepreneurship, about building companies.
And so you, from HP, you rose through the ranks, and how did you get to the management level and what happened?
Well, so I started getting noticed in the Valley after 8 years at HP, and I was in corporate. And I actually turned down going to Apple, by the way.
You turned down going to Apple?
See how much I know, right? But anyway, I was getting recruited, and there was a startup company called Activision. Activision was the first video game software company that didn't make hardware. Before that, all the game manufacturers were hardware people, primarily dominated by Atari. So I joined Activision. In fact, it was a startup. My first day on the job, I was called into a conference room, and we were getting sued by Atari, which claimed that you couldn't develop a video game without violating their patent. Obviously, we won that because it would be a video game software industry. And I ended up running the video game development function. So I was managing game designers. Now you got to understand, managing game designers is a really interesting experience because the game designers are half computer scientists and half rock stars. Now that's a very interesting personality type, all right? And you have to learn how to manage really interesting people. But it was a great experience for me, and I spent 5 years doing that. And at that time, we went from zero to $177 million in revenue in 15 months. That was the fastest growth of any company to that point in Silicon Valley.
So you're a techie guy. Would you consider yourself a techie guy?
I'm a tech industry guy.
You're a tech industry guy. How important is technology in the world today?
Well, everybody in this room, lives will be fundamentally transformed by technology and links faster than you think. Whatever you think how fast it's going to be is going to be twice as fast. I mean, the stuff I see young kids working on, it's amazing. We have there are five, and I've been in this business 40 years, so I'm really old. And the big thing you have to understand is common wisdom has never been right over 5 to 7 years. But we tend to have one fundamental change happen at a time. That was mainframe computers, client server, well, mini computers, then client servers, then the internet, then the browser, et cetera. Well, we have 5 fundamental trends happening right now, and all of them are transforming. As you've heard over and over, everybody has a supercomputer in there. Not everybody, but probably most people in this room have a supercomputer in their hands. And think about this. When we had the internet bubble in 2000, there were 400 million users on the internet. Last year, there were 3 billion users connected on the internet. In 2020, there'll be 4 billion users connected on the internet. And that means 80% of the world's population will be connected. So not only rural Mississippi, but rural Cambodia and rural Cameroon will be connected. When that happens, as is happening today, everything changes. Okay? But that's only one fundamental trend. A second trend is e-commerce. Amazon is really the Ruth Sears and Roebuck of our time. And Amazon is only 10% the size of Walmart. So you can just imagine, fast forward, how much every retailer, every brick and mortar company that sells something is only going to be under attack on that business model, because we will buy stuff more and more on the internet. It's perfect shopping. You can do price comparison. You can do it on your smartphone. It's just going to change things. That's 2. The third major change is cloud computing, and which allows you to not have to buy computers yourself. You can access them. Okay, if we were sitting in a meeting here 5 years ago, and we had HP and IBM executives in this room and told them that Amazon was going to compete with you by providing cloud services people use, they would have said, that's crazy. We, IBM, competing with Amazon? They're a customer of ours. But today, Amazon cloud offering are competitive to HP and IBM, and they're selling less hardware, but you don't have to buy the hardware. I can connect to the cloud. So that's 3. The fourth thing is, and you all heard about this, is security. I mean, it's fundamental. We're all exposed. In fact, I tell companies, every company will be hacked, and you may already been hacked, but everybody's going to get hacked. The question is, how soon do you know that you're hacked, and what are you going to do about it? How fast can you respond? But a smart bad guy can hack you personally or hack any company in the country, including, if you've seen, the U.S. government. And the last thing, the business I'm in, is big data. Every day we are producing more data than we have in the history of man. And people are being overwhelmed by that data. But if you can harness it, if you can take advantage of it, and create a business advantage, that's what companies will do. And so this whole data analytics, big data space is real, it's important, it's fundamental. But all those 5 changes will fundamentally change the way we live and work, no matter where you are. And so either you can choose to be a victim of it and get overwhelmed by time, or you can say, okay, I'm going to embrace it, I'm going to take advantage of it, because it does create opportunities. And people, companies, communities that take advantage of it will be fine and be enriched, and other people will be like what happened to the Rust Belt, and many large manufacturing companies, the communities got devastated by that change. This is another change that's even more fundamental than that.
You mentioned data analytics, you're in that business. Tell us a little bit about your company and how fast you plan to grow.
Well, we're a 700-person company, do about $55-60 million of revenue, growing at about 30%. We just raised for the first time venture capital and raised $35 million for the company, with the idea that we can grow 40+% if we had capital. First time we raised it was a big decision. We have 700 people in the world today, and a year from now we will have 1,400 people. We just approved the second half plan to grow headcount by 50%. And the board, I'm the chairman of the board, we challenged management. We didn't know if they could do it or not, but we're going to give it a shot. Our business is growing as fast as we can hire and develop and train people, because the problems we solve are fundamental for companies. Just to give you a sense of 2 or 3 problems we solve for Unilever, a global consumer packaged goods company. Historically, in that business, when you run a trade promotion, you run it, you roll it out globally, and you know 4 to 6 weeks later that the trade promotion wasn't successful. The CEO said, boy, if I could figure that out faster, we could make corrections or reinvest or pull investments on trade promotions around the world. So we proved that we could roll out a solution that allows them to evaluate a trade promotion in 4 days. And so they can cancel one in Mumbai and spend more in Jackson, because it's working in Jackson, it's not working in India.
That sounds like a
So
plan.
that's the kind of problem that we solve for customers.
So you've been in Silicon Valley for 40 years, so you know quite a number of people. You're a mentor to many people, and we'll get to that. Google, Microsoft, Apple. What lessons have you learned along the way? What changes have you seen?
Well, I get that question a lot. You know, 2 things, 2 fundamental things. One is that common wisdom, things are just different than anybody ever guessed. And so common wisdom just hasn't been right. And so I am sure things will be very different 5 to 7 years now than I expect, or any writer that will write about expect. Because you can't, given technology enables you to do things you couldn't imagine before. So that's the big aha. The second thing is the thing that hasn't changed. The most important, we'll talk about this later, but the most important ingredient of success in technology is talent. Is that when all that asset goes home every day and you want it to come work with you. So talent is the lifeblood of technology, knowledge-based company. What has changed is speed. You know, when we created, in the early days of the computer business, you developed a cycle to develop a new computer was about 5 to 6 years. Okay, from the time you said you'll start a new computer to get it out. The cycle to develop a new one of these things, like 6 months.
Say that again, the cycle to develop that is 6 months?
6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, so the cycle development, things about 6 months. So things are happening quite a bit. I feel like it's feedback, am I right? But things are happening just.
You have too much wisdom for these mics.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. So things are just happening so much faster than did before. You know, I don't know how to make you understand this, but we're in a very disruptive time for technology. And and I worry about people in organizations saying, well, things don't change that fast. Let me tell you a story. I'm on the AAA insurance board. Okay, well, the check's amazing. How many of you remember the days when you got ready to take a trip, you'd get a trip ticket from AAA, all right? You realize that could have been MapQuest? MapQuest asked AAA to license your logo, and they said, oh, things don't change that fast. All right? You know Diamond rating, AAA Diamond? That could have been you. Things don't change that fast. AAA used to be the largest travel agency in the U.S. That could have been Travelocity. So that's just one example you can say. But people said, life doesn't change that fast. We have a tremendous logo. The status of that logo is amazing. If it just had chosen to license those 3 areas, it would have enough money to fund itself forever. And so if I can leave you with any message, things are going to change faster, way faster than you have any idea of. And hold on, get ready for it, or better yet, take advantage of it.
So what advice would you have for Jackson in developing a Tech Jackson innovation corridor? What are the key ingredients?
So first, I'm not from here. I'm not going to tell you what you should do. Let me tell you what I think works in Silicon Valley and why it works, and what I've led to understand. I've done some work several times in trying to figure out where you might locate technology center of excellence. What are the ingredients to make that work? By far, the most important ingredient to locate technology innovation is around great research institutions. That is the #1 ingredient by far. An advantage that San Francisco Bay Area has, we have 3, Stanford, Cal, and UCSF. And the reason that's important, you get great ideas flowing constantly and great talent constantly, because you have to reinvent yourself all continuously if you're going to be an innovation economy. Because what you do today won't take you to tomorrow, so you have to have this fresh ideas, and you have to have this real collaboration between industry and universities. One of the advantages that we have in Silicon Valley, Stanford was founded under that principle. When Leland Stanford started the university, he says, I want a Harvard of the West, but I can't just be Harvard. And he says, my differentiator will have a close relationship with business and industry. So we've always had this close symbiotic relationship between Stanford and the Valley. In fact, the CEO, the current president of Stanford, started a company called MIPS Technology when he was an engineering professor. In fact, I ended up being chairman of that company. Went back to be the dean of engineering, then the provost and the president. And he's on the Google board, for example. And so, but that relationship, that synergy, that back and forth, to me is critical. And so you have this advantage, you have several universities here. I think tightening that relationship between the industry and the university is critical ingredient. So that's 1. 2 is you do need risk capital, and it's different in most places. When I started a company that I founded, on 12 slides we raised $3 million in 90 days. The law firms competing for my business all on the come of my getting funded. And a venture capitalist provided us free rent. In Columbus, Ohio, where I went to Ohio State, if you ask people to do that, they think you're crazy. But people do that all the time in Silicon Valley. So the ability to have an infrastructure and a tolerance for risk, I think, is important if you're going to do startups. because there's a high probability that you'll fail. For every one Google or Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, there's 10 failures. And so you have to have an ecosystem and a mentality around that to make that work.
We'll talk a little bit more about that tolerance for risk, because you would think that if you give someone $1 million, young kid, he's got 3 or 4 co-founders with him, they got a great idea, they present a pitch deck, you hand them $1 million and they go right out and fail. Another kid comes in, he's got a great idea, he's got 4 co-founders, you give him another $1 million.
Okay, but see, here's my view. I understand what you're saying. I say this to people all the time. 100% of nothing is nothing, and a little bit of Google is a lot. All right? So, in that business, in the risk-taking venture business, you're assuming that 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 15, you're going to have Google. And that's the successful guys do that. And that way overcompensate for the other $1 billion. And what Stanford has done, okay, this is different than, I don't know about Jackson State, but Ohio State for a long time. Stanford facilitates and makes it easy for a professor or a student to take something they've learned in that university and commercialize it, and take a piece of the action as if they were an investor. And so you get a Google at Stanford and an Apple from Stanford, and you go on and on and on Twitter or LinkedIn. And their endowment is fueled by having a little piece of technology that was developed inside the institution. The venture guys did the same thing, the legal guys. I mean, the legal guys they didn't view it as a favor to me. They were making an investment in me, and if I had been successful, they would get a payback. But you do have to have tolerance of risk. The nice thing about the Valley, if you fail in a startup, it does not mean you failed in your career. So many places in the country or in the world, if you fail in a company, that means you're a failure. That's not true. It's a learning process. Creating companies is hard, and timing is important. And when I introduce somebody who's been a failure or been a failed company, I said, what did you learn from that? Do I believe they learn things that will serve well in the next thing that they do?
Okay. So
it's a mentality. I mean, it's a different mentality.
Okay, so research university, connection and relationship with businesses between the research university and the business community, tolerance for risk. These are some of the ingredients. What are some others?
And I think, business friend, the previous speaker talked about policy. I think a business-friendly and supportive environment and quality of life. Quality of life does matter because you have to be able to attract talent into your community if you're going to compete globally in the technology industry. So you have to be in a place that people feel like that their kids can go and have good quality schools, that you can have housing, although cost, you all know that Silicon Valley is very expensive. Why is it expensive? Because you can make a lot of money, okay? And it's a very attractive place to live and work. And so cost is not a sustainable advantage in the long run, okay? Because low cost work will move to the lowest place in the world that it can be done. And no matter what policies governments have, they can't beat it. You just can't win that battle. I was just in India last week and I gave a speech because they were worried about this, because it's going to move to Philippines or Thailand. At the end of the day, you have to add value to a product category if you're a company or a community to be successful. So the real win for anybody is, how do I create value? How do I create gross margin? How do I create profit? Through the brain, not in low-cost things. That's going to move.
Okay.
Depart and go somewhere in the world that's cheaper. because if the price is the only thing that matters, it's obvious the company is going to chase low labor costs.
Okay, so creating value, whether you're community, whether you're a company, is essential to compete. Can diversity be considered an asset that creates value?
Another question you get a lot of. Well, other than everybody likes to talk about the social issues, most people talk about what I call the deficit model. I talk about the opportunity model. I think diversity is an untapped opportunity. I have this saying, if I have a good idea, that you all think it's a bad idea, but really is a good idea, I'll make a lot of money. Okay? All right. And many of the innovations around the world, when cell phones first came out, people thought they were toys. Okay? And so if you buy that idea for me, let me give you another piece of information. If you go around the world, if you get on an airplane and you fly to Beijing, or you fly to Tokyo, or Sydney, or Paris, or London, you will see the impact of the most influential culture, subculture in the world, which is the African-American culture. You'll see it in food, in music, and in dress. But think about that. If I could bottle that and focus that creativity, what kind of products and services might I produce that would create incredible financial wealth? So, in the technology business, I said to you, talent was the key ingredient. So you cannot afford to overlook talent wherever you can find it. So that's number one for inclusion. Two is, it's clear that the better I understand my consumers, the better product and services I'll deliver to those consumers. And in this country, that consumer is increasingly more diverse and of color. So if I want to connect with my growing population of people I want to sell my product or services to, I ought to have people like that in my enterprise so I can make smart decisions against my competitors too. Three is, there are all kinds of studies that will say, if I want to be in the creative business, it's to my advantage to have people who attack a problem from different vantage points. A woman for sure will look at a problem differently than a man because she has had a different experience. And a black person will have a different experience than a white person. And the more diverse we are around the table attacking a problem, the higher probability I'll have a creative outcome. As Jim Collins called it, healthy tension is good for problem solving and great outcomes. So I get more creative outcomes with a diverse team attacking problems. Okay. So my business case is, I want to find talent wherever I can get it. I want a team that attacks problem creatively, and I want to better understand my customers. My case was, and I'll take my team against your team, or whatever, and we'll look bad. I'm not going to win. I believe that everywhere I've been, I've worked on that as a positive case, not a social good. That was not the fun reason to do it. The reason to do it is, I believe in my heart, and through my experience, I'll beat you in the marketplace if I have a diverse team.
Speaking of that, there's this theory of pattern matching that permeates Silicon Valley. You've been one of the voices of diversity, championing diversity, and we'll talk about Google and their diversity data and how that transformed a lot of things. But tell us about this pattern matching. Why do people do it? What's the benefit of it? What's the disadvantages of it?
So what you have to be a little careful. Many of the things I talk about in diversity, because I know about it in technology, but it's embedded in society. And it's like if this was a technology organization, I'd say, well, all the things that we have problems in America, we feel it in technology. It's just accelerated because things are moving so fast and we're creating jobs and you feel it better, but it's not unique. And I have this theory, no, it's not a theory, through observation, having helped build 4 companies and learn how companies make decisions. So the average, so there are several theories that I explained to you. First thing, companies are social systems. Social systems have a natural tendency to recreate themselves. So that's, if you buy that, then also, no matter what companies and managers say, a large number of the people who are hiring people are interested in reducing risk more than they are creating value or taking risk or optimizing the situation. So if you take that, I'm the manager and I'm trying to not fail, I don't want to create risk, and I have propensity to recreate myself. All right? So if I'm white male, went to Harvard, and you were a female and you went to Jackson State, when you walk in that door, my risk meter just went off. Because you're not Harvard, you're not man, okay? You're not white, you know? And so subconsciously, I have a higher bar. Because I don't think white people lay in bed trying to figure out how to school black people. I don't think that's what they do, okay? I think people are trying to survive and be successful. And as a natural instinct, and so my risk meter goes off and I have a higher bar if I don't think about it. And so what I say to organizations is, if you don't confront that, you will discriminate, because that's natural. You have to confront that and test out whether or not your hiring and promotion process is bias-free. Because the natural order of things is for it to be biased. And only by confronting that and measuring that and taking constructive action about that will you overcome it. And I try to explain that to people. Google is doing a good job. They've looked at their process. They're not happy with their numbers. And they found out there was built-in bias in their selection process. And I think everywhere I have been, I've tried to confront that. And today, when I give speeches or work with people or counsel, support people, I advise Pinterest, and we're working really hard at, the CEO is working really hard at trying to deal with that unconscious bias that's built into this natural tendency to recreate yourself. And if you can, when I was at SGI, I started really early, and we built that whole diversity thing in our DNA from day one. The interesting thing, when you build it in day one, it's just the way it is. You don't even have to talk about diversity. You just do diversity. Because you build it into your culture, and it's natural. We never had, at SGI, we never had a chief diversity officer. Because we were diverse. So the need for a chief diversity officer was redundant because we were that. And that's what I think you want to get to, is where it is who you are. And you don't have to talk about it because you look around the room or on a management team and it's diverse.
Well, speaking of diversity, there's actually a lot of diversity in Silicon Valley, and it's getting better because there's some proactive folks like yourself that are out there doing that. I was surprised when Bill Gates stepped down from Microsoft as chairman of the board of a company he founded, and the man who took his place was John Thompson. John Thompson graduated from
FAMU.
And he And most black people, if I ask them who John Thompson is, he's the former coach at Georgetown basketball. And I sat down with Ken yesterday, and I said, Ken, you know John Thompson? Well, yeah, he's my friend. He's chairman of the board at Microsoft. So Ken and John are what I call two of the four big major influencers. Over at Google, there's David Drummond. You want to tell us a little bit about David Drummond?
David Drummond is the general counsel and runs internal affairs for Google. He took them public. He went to Santa Clara University and Stanford Stanford lawyer. And we've already talked about this. So the fourth very influential person in Silicon Valley is a person named Emmett Carson. You probably don't know this, but Silicon Valley has the largest community foundation in the country. It's headed by Emmett. It's the 8th largest foundation in America of all foundations.
You said it's $4 billion?
It's about $4 billion foundation. It helps to have people like Zuckerberg around the community and things like that. It helps. But he's also an HBSU graduate of Morehouse. And so there are a number of HBSUs, graduates, alums in Silicon Valley doing wonderful things. Again, part of the issue is I've been working with Black enterprise, bragging on them. Because in general, the unfortunate thing about the media is these powerful stories, the story that Apple has 2 black females working directly for the CEO, or that Gilead Sciences, the key drug manufacturer for AIDS, CFO is a black woman, etc., doesn't get written. Okay, and so there's a whole set of very influential, important people in technology that you don't know that exist because they're not highlighted, because they're not sensational stories. They're just people like me, holding a job, trying to make a difference, But I think it's important, and I think I've convinced Black Enterprise to do a regular feature so that young black folks can see that technology is a good place for your career. It is the future. You can create wealth. A big difference if you come to Silicon Valley, and hopefully it'll be here, and you're a young college graduate, you can, without being a pipe dream, create real wealth. Not just real income, real wealth. At Pinterest, I'm on board of, I'm an advisor to, they will create 100 millionaires, 200 millionaires, when it's all said and done.
You also advise Andreessen Horowitz. And after this question, we're going to take some questions from the audience. So if you have any questions, just put your hand up and we'll get a microphone to you. We've got about 10 minutes left, so we'll do this question and we'll get to yours. You advise Andreessen Horowitz. Can you tell us a little bit about Andreessen Horowitz and how did you come to become the mentor of Ben Horowitz?
Well, how many people know who Andreessen Horowitz is? Oh, that's good. Okay. For those you don't know, it is considered by most the hottest venture capital firm in the country. It's only a 5-year-old firm, so it's very unusual for a 5-year-old fund to be in the top tier in that business. Well, Ben Horowitz, I hired as a summer student to work for me 2 summers, and then I convinced him to become a full-time employee. He went off and started a company called, it was ultimately called Opsware, Loud Cloud. And it was cloud computing before its time. Then it became pure software called Opsware. It was a $100 million company that sold to HP for $1.6 billion. That changed his life a little bit. And then he and his partner started this venture capital firm. And I advised him before he started, and I advised him today about developing the firm. I worked with That's how I ended up with pensions, because they were first investor in pensions. But we are, the firm itself is very committed to diversity. We're so committed, if we hire a Hispanic woman, people are high-fiving in the halls. They take so much pride in this firm in changing the face of venture investing. We have invested in a number of black firms, including one black founder in Atlanta, although most of our investments are in Silicon Valley. But it's a fantastic firm. We're having a real impact, and we are diverse. We believe in diversity. We're committed to it, and we're going to make a lot of money in it. So.
Okay, well, do we have any questions? We have one over here.
Hi. You mentioned that Google revised some of its internal processes because they contained a bias. So this may sound, I guess, like risk avoidance, but is there any way to avoid bias?
Is there any way to avoid bias? Well, I think if you can tease it out, I don't know if you can totally avoid it, but I think you can minimize it. You know, you get this debate about diversity, and what I call a weird debate about quotas, right? You immediately kind of move into, when somebody says, let's track numbers, says, oh, I don't want quotas. Everything in the enterprise, everything that matters has an objective and is measured. Everything. I want to increase profits, I want better quality, you name whatever it is in the enterprise, I'm going to have that I care about in building my company, is I'm going to have an objective, I'm going to measure it. So, and people know in that company, if it's not an objective that's measurable, it must not be definition important. So not to have metrics around diversity is not important by definition, because everything else that's important has an objective and is measured. Okay? And there are all kinds of metrics you can use to help you determine whether or not you have bias in your processes, selection and promotion process. It's not that hard. It doesn't give you the final answer, it doesn't tell you what to do about it, but at least you will point to something you should address and analyze.
Okay. We have a question up in the back, and then we'll come over here.
Yeah, when we look at the technology or innovative or scalable startups, typically we're talking 2, 3, 4 co-founders working together, which tremendously increases the collaborative network. When we work with many African American businesses, we find typically it's sole proprietors, perhaps the owner and a spouse. Very rarely do we see that level of collaboration. What are some things you see that can be done short term to help accelerate that collaboration process?
Well, God, I could talk for days about this. One is, I think the most important thing in building your career in technology, because I won't speak for Jackson or in Silicon Valley, is networking. I'm writing a book, and I have a chapter book called Dot Theory. And it's very simple, is the more dots that Mike has, the higher the probability he's going to connect with that dot that you are. And it's just math. The more dots you have, which is the more connections you have, the higher the probability you will hit something that matters. And you should collect those dots, by the way, before you need them. Okay? Because if you only reach out for dots when you need them, you're begging rather than networking. Okay? So, my second point on entrepreneurship and about relationships, talking to oneself is not particularly enlightening. Okay? All right? So it might be helpful to collaborate with people and vet yourself if you want to maximize the opportunity. And the last thing is, building company is not track, it's football, it's a team sport. and multiple people, it is multiple people playing multiple roles that allows you to maximize the effort.
Okay, next question? Next question?
Okay, hi, good morning. I have to ask, as an advocate for persons with disabilities, to what capacity or degree do you see persons with disabilities being more inclusive in this industry?
Clearly, again, technology is having in Silicon Valley, we've been in the forefront of that. One of the good things is you can, depending on the disability, technology can be very helpful, embracing that. You know, California is very aggressive about accessibility. At SGI, we had a very simple model at SGI. We said we wanted to create a safe environment for all people to work. Be you disabled, a woman, or gay, it didn't matter. We wanted to create a safe environment. When you say, I want to create a safe and welcome environment for all people, it kind of eliminates you do what you have to do, and you don't complain about it. Because again, I'm in the talent business. And I'm trying to get the smartest people to come work in my company and create an environment where this happens, okay? I use this as a, what am I trying to do? I'm saying, when I know I got you, I got a guy working for me, and it's Thanksgiving morning, and he tells his wife, I got to run by the office before I forgot something at the office, but he really runs by and checks on his programming code. Not because he has to, because he wants to, because he cares about the company and what we're doing. I'm trying to create that environment because you can't, when I went to undergraduate school, I'm an industrial engineering kind of undergraduate degree, and I did time and motion studies, right? And you could tell how long it took to put pieces together, and you could measure that, and people did comp programs around that. In the business I'm in today, I'm creating and innovating the future. I don't know how creative you can be. All I know is I can create an environment that you can be more creative than you ever thought you could be. That's my job. That's what my company's trying to do. And so so management, leadership, what you're trying to do, if you really want to compete in a creative, innovative economy, you have to think about your role differently than in a manufacturing economy.
And we have a question here.
Hi, I'm looking at Tech Jackson and Prosperity NOLA and RTP and Silicon Valley. What do you see is missing in Silicon Valley and RTP and other places that Jackson and or Mississippi could capture? Where's the gap? What's new? What's helping to make us innovative?
Well, I think first thing, everybody doesn't want to live in Silicon Valley. So one advantage that you have is not Silicon Valley. Okay. What we want, I think what the world wants, if you're going to be a technology center, is this whole innovative mindset, supportive environment, and this universities. Again, there are a lot people have expanded, trying to do technology in very nice, high-quality places to live that didn't have universities, and it didn't work. It just won't work because this ability of fresh ideas and fresh talent is fundamental in this technology because it never stays the same. Different than the days of manufacturing where you build a building and it's there for 100 years. That doesn't work. We're going to have companies and ideas and technologies come and go on a regular basis, and you have to have this regeneration process if you're going to compete in an innovative economy.
Yes, sir. I think this is our last question.
So, when I was a freshman in college, I remember going to an event like this, the Black Engineer of the Year Awards Conference. And I went to a session because I was trying to figure out how to get my dad's business wired up for broadband. And, you know, somebody basically was like, well, dream bigger, you can start a broadband company, which for the longest, at the time, there was no broadband in the area in Mississippi where I was from. But then the challenge I got when I came back to college was, so I'm talking to all my mentors, or whatever, and I didn't get the encouragement and the things that I needed to kind of break me out of, what I was on a good track. I mean, I stayed on that track. I was on a good track to a good life, a good education. And so now being a college professor, if I see, a student just like myself, I want to be in a position armed with knowledge and connections that if he or she would like to do a similar thing, but I just don't know how. It's like how, so if a student came to me and they were like, they want to do something more beyond just an app, something that may, be potentially threatening to incumbents, like how do we do that? How, when you say the infrastructure is not there, the risk capital is not there, we have great research institutions, but they are not at the scale of the Stanfords and the Berkeleys and the CMUs of the world. Are there collaborations, are there connections that people in Silicon Valley, the Research Triangle, and so on, Austin or whatever, can do to connect to communities like the Southeast? So
Well, I don't have a magic bullet here. I personally, one man, I get 2 to 3 LinkedIn requests a week from some entrepreneur trying to do something. And I try to respond as best I can and recommend them to places. I think you just have to, the nice thing about the internet, or if I'm a young entrepreneur, is there are a lot of resources I can go and track down on the internet that I couldn't in the past. That's the good news for entrepreneurs. The bad news for somebody like me is I get overwhelmed by those requests. But I do what I can. But it's hard. I was an article written on me in the USA Today, and I realized something that I hadn't thought about. Clearly for young black technology entrepreneurs, they need a voice. It was clear to me in the U.S. that they don't have a voice, and I don't know what the answer is. I've tried to say, Black Enterprise, maybe you can be the answer and give these young people a voice and an outlet to solve some of the things you just raised. I don't know. But there are a lot of smart young people with ideas that I think if we could figure out how to support them in the country, it would be good for them and the country. Because this is an idea business. And ideas aren't limited to some part of the culture. Great ideas can come from anywhere, including people. You realize that Zuckerberg never graduated from college, that Bill Gates, the wealthiest man in the world, never graduated from college. Michael Dale never graduated from college. So I'm not saying don't go to college, because I did. It changed mine. I'm not smart enough without college to be sitting here talking to you. But it's not the only way to achieve enormous success in this economy, creative economy, and create enormous number of jobs and wealth.
Okay, we've got to wrap this up. I did say that was the last question, but I'm going to break that rule because I can't. You are the last question, though. We have 1 minute, so.
I'm Richard Gallo. I'm Dean of the College of Science, Engineering, and Technology at Jackson State. I want to take this opportunity to thank our distinguished speaker for his very important words, talking about having a research university lined up with this whole initiative that's going on here in Jackson, Mississippi. We are a research-intensive university. The College of Science, Engineering, and Technology generates about $25 million a year, but I really want to emphasize, you talk about big data. I think we're the only minority-serving institution in the country at this point that offers a graduate degree in big data, both master's.
Yeah, I'm going to be recruited here, I realize that, so you'll see us show up here.
And the other thing I want to point out is, the importance of the nurturing environment that comes with an institution like we have at Jackson State. I come to Jackson State, I'm in my 3rd year, but I come from Carnegie Mellon, University of Houston, and the National Science Foundation. And so, all that you've said about entrepreneurship, innovation, rings a very, very strong bell with us at Jackson State and in the College of Science, Engineering, and Technology. I think this marriage that we have, not only for helping the city build the health corridor, but the technology corridor, is very, very important. We really appreciate your encouragement to the audience here. Thank you.
By the way, can I just, you do have this foundation in the health corridor. You know, health is going through, is currently going through and will go through the next decade enormous change, enormous opportunity. And healthcare and technology they are on this blazing course to change the way we do medicine. And so you have this basis, this opportunity here to bring those things together, and there are only a few other places in the country that have that opportunity, and I would encourage you to take advantage of that.
And speaking of taking advantage, we took advantage of your time and your wisdom, so I really appreciate it.